Well, it is 5 o'clock, so I will go ahead and welcome everyone to our May 16th City of Kalamazoo Committee of the Whole meeting on this beautiful day. And yes, there is something different. If you're wondering, the plexiglass is gone. It does feel a little strange, and who knows, I'm watching the trajectory right now. We might be hauling those things back out here. We'll see. Our first step, however, is a roll call. Clerk Borling.
Commissioner Decker.
Present.
Commissioner Hess. Commissioner Hoffman.
Present.
Commissioner Juarez.
Present.
Commissioner Pradel.
Present.
Vice Mayor Cooney.
Present.
Mayor Anderson.
Here. Thank you, Clerk Borling. May I have a motion to excuse Commissioner Hess?
So moved.
And support?
Support.
Motion made by Commissioner Pradel, supported by Commissioner Hoffman. All in favor, please say aye.
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 Opposed, nay. All right. Next on our agenda is we have Laura Lamb with us this evening, which is fantastic. Next is communications. Any communications? Thank you. Now is the opportunity for public comments. If you have a public comment for our meeting tonight, you will have 2 minutes. Please come to the front here if you're in the chambers, and you'll have, please state your name and whether you live in the city. You'll have 2 minutes. And then we will be checking in to see if anyone has called in for the Committee of the Whole meeting. After that, is there anyone in the chambers who would like to speak?
My name is Joanna. I'm here today to ask the City Commission to add to the agenda a discussion about the sweeps that are still happening in Kalamazoo as we speak. I'm here to ask for a discussion about dropping the charges against activists. I think this is a great opportunity to put, the words that Kalamazoo says into action. We consider this city a very progressive place, but it's truly not with KDPS, not with Laura Lamb and Jim Ritzema directly involved in approving these sweeps that are inhumane, unconstitutional. We really need to have this conversation. We are not going to stop emailing. We're not going to stop pressing for this because KDPS needs to be held accountable for the violence that many activists experienced that day. We were all peaceful. People were linked in hands. There was no need for cops, for them to send the most aggressive cops to come and attack citizens. And I want to read this, what Jim Ritzema said. The City of Kalamazoo is committed to governing intentionally to create equitable and inclusive outcomes for everyone in Kalamazoo. That commitment begins with understanding and acknowledging the truth of our past, Ritzema said, and the role the City of Kalamazoo has played in creating and sustaining systemic racism. We understand that words are not enough, and we must demonstrate our commitment to transformational change with credible action to change policies, promote community healing, and increase trust, and ensure community members are treated fairly and are truly valued, Ritzema said. So this is from Jim Ritzema, the person with Laura Lamb who are approving these sweeps, who haven't acknowledged and have denied the allegations of any violence. How is this building trust? We need to build trust with the community, and this is not what is happening. This is not reality in Kalamazoo, and we...
Thank you very much. Is there anyone else in the chambers who would like to make comments for the Committee of the Whole meeting?
My name is Julie Jensen. Did you want me to state my address? Okay. I'm here tonight to introduce myself to you because I'm running for the Ninth Circuit Court judicial position. There are 2 openings due to retirements that are happening. And I just wanted to give you a little bit of information about myself. I am a native of Kalamazoo County. I was born and raised in Kalamazoo County, lived here all my life, married for 30 years to my husband, and raised 2 children here, went to WMU. And I feel like I have the longest and the most varied experience record of all the candidates for circuit court. This is my 30th year of practice. I started in 1992. And I have done a number of things. I started out with the Court of Appeals, and there we reviewed trial court records and evidence and did much the same as circuit court judges do in their roles. And from there, I moved to a Kalamazoo law firm, or actually two of them. For 9 years, I practiced civil litigation, doing personal injury defense, workers' compensation, and then general practice matters. From there, I decided to join public service in 2003, and I joined the Michigan Attorney General's office, where I handled unemployment claims in circuit courts all across the state. From there, after 10 years, I joined Treasury, where I currently work, and there I help taxpayers resolve matters and also represent the state in tax matters. I also am the tribal liaison for Michigan's 12 Native American tribes of Michigan, so I'm their tax liaison. And I believe that I have a strong commitment to helping people resolve their legal disputes. I'm fair, I'm open-minded, and I have excellent writing and oral skills, and I approach matters with common sense and practicality. I do have a website at www.juliejensen, Jensen, 4 judge.com, and you can check out my qualifications there.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it. Is anyone else in the chambers wants to make comments to our Committee of the Whole meeting this evening? Seeing no one. Patricia Vargas, do we have anyone who's called in?
No, we do not.
No calls. All right. Our public comment period is over. Thanks to all who took the time to attend this meeting and make comments. We're now down to our work session. Deputy City Manager Lamb.
Thank you, Your Honor. Pleased to announce tonight that we have Director Baker, still rookie mistake, Director Baker, Public Services, and also have Jamie McCarthy, our Sustainable Development Coordinator. They're going to walk us through a presentation to give you an update on the Allied landfill remediation.
Welcome.
Mayor, Vice Mayor, and Commissioners, and thank you for your time this afternoon. Thank you, Deputy City Manager, for the introduction. My name again, Jamie McCarthy, and I'm in Community Planning and Economic Development. This is really a follow-up to about a year ago. The city, the Environmental Trust, and our state and federal partners hosted a town hall and a Q&A session for a kickoff to a construction project. This is a large-scale Superfund cleanup project here in Kalamazoo. The site is the former Allied paper mill, and this is going to be a multi-year construction project. And so today I'm here with Mr. Baker, Director of Public Services, to give you an update and give you some photographs. We have some drone footage so you can kind of see the site and what's happened over the last year. So I will get us kicked off. Okay, we got there. Just big picture, zoom out here. The Allied paper landfill is located along the Portage Creek, so we're really far south here in Kalamazoo County, right in the middle of the city, and it's part of a larger Superfund site. It's over 80 miles of the Kalamazoo River have been impacted by former mills, paper mills located along the river, and they left contaminants, PCBs, behind as part of their operations. They were recycling and manufacturing paper products. So you can see here, this is a zoom in of the site. So you can see it's located along the Portage Creek. Been told this little light doesn't work that great, but along the Portage Creek, we have Elcott Street to the north and Cork Street to the south. And there's also a timeline here. So you can see this site has been on the federal Superfund list for more than 2 decades. There have been a series of sort of stepwise investigations and studies to really understand the full site, the extent of contamination, and the cleanup that's going to be needed there. If you skip down to the bottom, in most recent history, in 2019, the Environmental Trust and EPA released the final remedial design, so this is the cleanup plan for this site. And construction started in 2021, and it's been a long haul, so this was a big moment last year when we got shovels in the ground and started seeing work out there. This graphic here gives you a sense of what the site looked like just prior to construction. So, here you'll see sort of the adjacent land uses which are important to keep in mind. We have the Hillcrest Circle, which is part of the Millwood neighborhood, and then you also have some commercial uses up along Alcott Street, so that's to the right, that's north on this graphic. There will be some cleanup that's planned later on for that area along Portage Creek on the Goodwill Industries property, so you can see that's just south of Portage Creek along Alcott Street. And then there is going to be some cleanup that kind of is on the border, the boundary of some of those residential properties that line the river there, or line the creek there. Other things to note in this drawing, you can see everything that's on the southern end of the property, so that's to your left, just off of Cork Street. That's where a lot of the former the paper waste disposal sites were on both sides of the creek. There's remaining paper waste in different areas. There's also contamination left behind from some of the settling ponds and waste lagoons that were on the site. Sort of in the middle there, you see some references to some landfills. Those landfills were created as part of kind of a stopgap measure just to address some immediate contamination concerns to keep things on that site until this bigger plan for cleanup was finalized. So it wasn't the complete cleanup that needed to happen. Move forward to this picture. This is the schematic from the remedial design or the remediation plan, redevelopment plan, and it's giving us an idea of what the site is going to be looking like after the work is done here, in 2024 and beyond. So the changes we're going to see out here is the consolidation area is all going to be moved away from Portage Creek. It's going to have a smaller footprint, but it's going to have a higher profile, and that's how they're going to kind of configure the waste that right now is in different locations throughout the site. It's all going to be kind of capped and secured in this one location. You'll see again on the left side, the south side, there's a plan to realign Portage Creek, so it'll have a more natural configuration through there, and we're going to gain some new floodplain and wetlands along that part of the property. And then as we look at the area that has the highest potential for reuse, because that's a big part of this plan as well, everything kind of north near Alcott is a bit higher and flatter. It has good access and good road frontage, and so that's where we envision in the future that redevelopment is most likely to happen on this site. Okay. I wanted to talk a little bit about, now that the work is active and being done, we're just kicking off the second year here. There are monitoring plans in place, and I'm just going to talk briefly about those. The monitoring includes air monitoring, so they're checking regularly for dust and particulate matter, making sure that that's not moving or spreading to neighboring properties. There's also vehicle washing stations that are there really to prevent, again, any of that material that's on those construction vehicles from making its way onto roadways or moving off of the site. There's also soil erosion and stormwater controls for the same reason, trying to keep this stuff out of places like Portage Creek and spreading it. And then there's also the noise monitoring that's going on the site just to protect workers and to make sure it's following all of our local ordinances here. This graphic is showing you the different stages of construction in different years. It's a little bit busy, but if you check out the most dark blue part, that was work done in 2021. It was really primarily getting started, getting staging areas set up, getting ready for the project, and kind of moving into that landfill area for deconstruction. In 2022, the work is really going to move primarily into that former landfill area, starting to pull back that material from the creek and move it into and start constructing this new consolidation area. And then in 23, you can see the work really moves out to the outer areas. It's that excavation that's planned around Goodwill Industries, some other excavation that has to happen all along the east side of Portage Creek. All of that, again, being brought into the consolidation area. And then the fourth and final year of construction is really going to be focused on that green line, so finalizing that cap and what that final configuration will look like, and then the restoration work that will happen on the site, everything that's kind of been left behind. With that, some city representatives attended the year 2 kickoff meeting that the Environmental Trust and EPA and partners held a couple of weeks back. And so they got a tour of the site, and Director Baker is going to walk us through the tour, give us a little bit of video footage of that.
Thank you, Ms. McCarthy. Good evening, City Commission, Deputy City Manager Lamb, City Attorney Robinson. As Ms. McCarthy stated, myself and Deputy City Manager Chamberlain attended a site visit. On this site, we spent approximately one afternoon out there, about 3 hours, touring, walking, and driving around the site. These photos, as well as we also have a drone video for you. These occurred kind of late winter. You can see there's some snow cover still in some of these photos. This occurred prior to our site tour. So there's some change and updates that we were able to visualize just from change of being on site versus what you see in the photos. And so just to kind of orientate yourself to the photo that you have in front of you here, that street view that you see kind of in the bottom of the screen, that's Alcott Street. You see the wing walls of the updated bridge structure and Portage Creek flowing towards the top. That's actually, you're looking south, the creek is flowing north, and then you're looking right towards kind of the frontage of the site and kind of getting into the Panelite site. There's a round concrete foundation, and we believe that is one of the original stack foundations, and then some difference between what Deputy City Manager Chamberlain and myself were able to visualize when we were on site. That entire area that's snow fenced off, there was many more foundations in that area, all very similar to that stack foundation. So there was additional process and tank foundations, just a lot of concrete that was exposed. We've now kind of moved to the extreme south end of the site, and it's just barely visible, but towards the top of the viewport, you can see what is Court Street. That's that street that's towards the top of the screen. On the right-hand side of the screen, as you're looking at it, you have the railroad tracks, and then there's kind of a 2-track access road. And then we're looking at what is going to be the future north toe of the slope as it's starting to build up. And so you can see kind of bulldozers, excavators, and heavy equipment in the picture that are kind of working. And you see these kind of long parallel lines of material that's getting moved around. Those represent a lot of the paper waste, ash waste, and some of the other waste on the site that's getting consolidated. This is essentially that same view, but just turned around. Instead of looking south, we're now looking north. The railroad tracks that were on the right-hand side or of the screen have kind of switched to the left. That's just, we've essentially done a 180, and you're just looking back at some of the material that's getting staged. This is essentially the bottom of that 26-acre consolidation area that's going to get built up. So I'll click it one more time, and we'll be able to start a drone video here. And then this is just a flyover. This is from Alcott Street heading south, flying over those areas that I just described. We're kind of going over that stack area that I talked about. We're kind of going into the Panelite area, and then as we go south, we'll just kind of continue to go into areas of consolidation, excavation that were shown in that previous map. One thing to note, at the Portage Creek, you see there's relative lack of vegetation along the stream banks. That section was all cleaned up, realigned, and reconstructed back in 2017. So the Portage Creek work was already completed in this section, and then as we progress south, you'll see those areas that need to, where that work needs to occur, and that work is going to occur in 2023 and 2024. You can kind of see just all the materials for the site, years and years, decades and decades of historic and former residual lagoon disposals that were occurring on site is now all getting consolidated into a landfill area. These landfills are going to be capped and lined, and there's also a tremendous amount of institutional controls that will be in place to monitor and protect to ensure that we're protecting the environment for years to come. And you can start to see Cork Street now visible as we're flying south. We kind of hit the, you see it looks like a red truck or vehicle kind of pulling into the site, coming into one of those vehicle control points. When Ms. McCarthy talked about the controls on the site and what is done to make sure that no contamination spreads off site, every vehicle that goes in and out of the site is stopped and inspected. The tires and everything are cleaned off to make sure that it's not tracking anything from the site. So there's a lot of controls in place. And so that concludes the video, and I think we can take questions now. I'll just advance our slides to the final one here. Thank you.
Thank you so much for being here. Appreciate it. Questions from Commission? Don't see any questions. Oh, Commissioner Decker?
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you guys for that presentation. It's really, I drive past Cork Street all the time, and the aerial view really shows you the detriment that can happen to a large area of land, when it's polluted. I didn't realize the area was that big. So they're looking, I was kind of reading some of the paperwork. I'd done some research online with some of the EPA documents. So they're looking for this to be done and cleaned up in 2024, right? Is that what we're hoping for?
That's correct. The project duration goes through 2024.
Through 2024? Okay, and with that, everything's going to be cleaned. You're going to have the area where everything's going to be contained. Do you ever foresee there being a street that would be able to be created to kind of connect the two neighborhoods? I think it was at Elcott and Cork. Thank you.
Correct, Elcott and Cork. We don't currently have plans to put a street through there. There's essentially two main logging roads or haul roads, if you call them, that are on the site right now. One of those haul roads will be maintained into the future to allow maintenance access and everything into the site. But I'm not saying that's off the table. It's just not included within the construction project at this time.
Okay, I was just wondering because someone had brought up like, you ever wonder why you can't go from here to there? And I was like, never thought about that. And I think having this decision and having the state step in and the city of Kalamazoo really working hard to make sure that this is cleaned up. Lessons learned from many, many years of what pollutants and what certain industries and certain factories can do to our ponds, our waterways, our rivers. So I appreciate you guys being on this. I appreciate you guys, everything that you've done for that, and just hope that nothing like this ever happens again within the city of Kalamazoo.
Vice Mayor Cooney.
Thank you, Mayor. I have a few questions. First of all, who's paying for this?
So this project right now, I'm going to use kind of round numbers, not precise exact numbers, but the work you see described and kind of presented to you today represents approximately $50 million of work. And that is paid for by the Lyondell Trust, or essentially the responsible parties have paid together into a trust. And so those are the funds that are using to pay for this remedy.
So they're paying for all of it?
Correct.
Okay, good. Thank you. My understanding is that when it's done, it will be capped and monitored, and that we have plans to use that land afterward. There was talk about a recreation park in there and some other kinds of things. Is that still on the table?
Yes, thank you, Vice Mayor. That's some great points. So one of the things that we are currently working on right now is a, what I call a due care plan, but I think we call it like a long-term maintenance plan, if you will. I might not be using the proper acronyms for, kind of this long-term stewardship that the city is going to be responsible for. So one of the things that we are going to have to maintain is that 26-acre, approximately 80-foot tall landfill consolidation area. So that will become city responsibility to maintain. There is going to be some infrastructure out there. There's going to be a gas collection system, a leachate collection system, a flare, groundwater treatment monitoring. So there's a lot of things in play from an infrastructure standpoint that will be on that hill itself. Certainly there's also some opportunity for recreation. There could be some opportunity for renewable energy infrastructure. Some of those things haven't been fully developed yet, so we haven't kind of outlined everything that's going to be in play. Well, we do know that the city's going to own it, and the city's going to be responsible to maintain it. And a lot of those things you mentioned are certainly options for us.
Okay. Mayor Anderson will remember, but I don't think anybody else up here will remember, that the original plan was to transport the PCBs from all over western Michigan and make a huge pile there. And we were going to take all the PCBs from all around western Michigan. And that would have happened, except that people in this community fought it and stopped it. That's something to remember. My last question is, what's going to be the effect on the river? Do they have some ideas about what the effect is going to be on the river?
Yeah, certainly, Vice Mayor. First, before I answer that, I just want to clarify that this site, as shown, is only consolidating the materials that are on the site. So there's no material getting brought in.
We stopped that.
In terms of protection of the Portage Creek and ultimately Kalamazoo River, this is very positive in terms of cleanup and protection. And so this is taking everything that's been on the site and that we've known to be bad roughly for more than 60 years that sat out there. So this cleans that all up, it consolidates it in a line monitored consolidation area. And then we've also had those successive projects that have been focused on Portage Creek and Kalamazoo River. So in 2012, a section of Portage Creek was cleaned up going all the way down to, including Reed Street and then going just south to Alcott. 2017, that was picked back up and then went south to about Hillside. And then we've got this major cleanup area that's occurring, right now. And so this also is occurring at the same time that EPA is out cleaning up Kalamazoo River. We've got work going on in the park, and work going on next to the wastewater treatment plant. So all along Kalamazoo River, we've got cleanup. So there's a tremendous amount of cleanup that's all kind of occurring right now. And I think to really kind of articulate what's happening in Kalamazoo is that we're really kind of in the beginning stages of a very positive success story. We're in that right now. This is a time for us to roll our sleeves up. This is a time for us to do this work, really for the future. And so there was, decades and decades and decades of pollution that's in the process right now, getting cleaned up. And that's some very positive work, and we're very proud of that. We're very proud to be here to help protect the river for years to come.
Thank you.
Thank you, Vice Mayor Cooney. Other questions? Yeah, Commissioner Juarez.
In the future, will there be opportunity to build on that site or no?
Yeah, I'll let Ms. McCarthy talk about development opportunities in the future.
Yeah, thank you, Commissioner, for that question. I'm going to try to go back. Clerk Borling, is that going to be possible? I can do it without the visual. Yeah, so the area you see here, the Allied paper site where most of the work is happening is outlined in the black dotted line. You'll see the blue line there is actually a separate parcel. It's been operated for separate type manufacturing activities, also has had some historic contamination. It's currently owned by the Brownfield Redevelopment Authority, and the idea is when the city has kind of both of these pieces, we'll have this, large land area between these two streets. It's sort of, I'd say kind of halfway through that blue parcel and north to Alcott Street that seems like it will have the highest potential for redevelopment, for construction, something new there. Has access to the street and utilities in that way. And so that seems like it's an area, I can't tell you how many acres. We do get in some wetlands kind of on the south part of that Panelite property. But that's sort of the main area where we envision most likely a more commercial industrial type use, probably not residential.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Juarez. Commissioner Pradel.
Good evening, guys. I had a question for you. I don't expect you to be an expert at, EPA's work, but I know at the site, we have two of the largest neighborhoods in the city that neighbor the site. And I've talked to a few neighbors who have just kind of asked me if I knew anything and said, hey, do you know if there's any, monitoring going on for air quality, and just to make sure that the air quality around that area during this construction site is safe for the folks in the neighborhood. I did see from here tonight that is the case, but I wonder if you would be able to share a little bit about what that monitoring looks like, where the monitoring is occurring, if they do get elevated levels, what transparency exists so the neighborhood can know that happened. Because, people from the neighborhood, from Edison and from Millwood, they see the site where there's, pollution being dug up out of, dust and debris. And, when I've kind of driven by and walked by, I haven't really seen where they're like hosing it down as they're digging or anything. And so I know it is a concern of residents, and I wanted to ask if you knew much about that.
Yes, Commissioner Pradel, that's certainly bring up some great questions. I think we'll probably have to follow back up with some actual data, or how can folks get the data? Where is the data available? I can share just some anecdotal observations back to the commission based from my roughly 3 hours on the site. And we did see some of the monitors in place, so we know that it is happening. And I can share with you some of the construction challenges that we talked about, some of the details of actual earth moving and things that are occurring on the site, is that a majority of the site is currently challenged on retaining too much water. And so there's activities going on from a construction standpoint to try to squeeze water out and try to get things to a drier, more stable sense so that they can be properly compacted and landfilled. The weather that we've had so far has really created some wet conditions out there, and we haven't been seeing the dust and challenges with that. So that's just some anecdotal observations of kind of the experiences that are currently occurring on the site. But I think we'll probably have to follow back up in terms of actual data.
Thank you.
Other questions, commissioners? Thank you very much. DCM Lamb, is there more to this presentation?
Nothing further at this time. Thank you very much.
Okay,
both.
well, thank you. So I just want to say, I'll say a couple things myself. So well before I got on the commission, and I don't know if it was before you're getting on the commission, Vice Mayor Cooney, but anyway, yes, well, I mean, just a little bit of history context here. I mean, we will all remember that for better, maybe during some times, and for worse, in terms of having to deal with it, Kalamazoo was paper city. Paper mills, in a lot of ways, built Kalamazoo. A lot of people worked in paper mills. I think there's probably well over a dozen if you start thinking about Kalamazoo and Otsego and Plainwell and Vicksburg, all over the place. It was definitely a center for paper making. Back in a time when you didn't think too much about just getting along a river, so you'd have a lovely place to dump your waste out, and it would go rolling away. And obviously, we are now dealing with the repercussions of all that. And it also reminds, I think, all of us a little about timeframes, how this all works, because where we are now, even though we are not done, I will feel like we are in a place where this is very positive. We have won something that maybe wasn't everything that we wanted, but this is really a victory for what was an abandoned site here in Kalamazoo. And we have multiple abandoned sites in Kalamazoo as well. I believe that as far as the ongoing monitoring, and you were asking about who's paying for this, and luckily within the whole settlement on this, there was money set aside to do this work, which was one of the limitations, how much money there was to do this. But I think some of that money is being saved to help support ongoing monitoring. Is that correct? There'll be a little nest egg of some kind to help support that expense?
That's correct. There'll be a pot of money that's going to help to fund the city's long-term stewardship of the site.
Right. So that's coming with it as well. So there's some unique things about this. One is that not, as the vice mayor stated, the initial plan, which they had pretty much agreed on inside of EPA, was like a done deal to some extent, was say, hey, it's a mess here, why not just bring more stuff to this site and just cap the whole thing? And so there was a lot of community involvement related to all that. Step two, when presumably that plan, was thrown out, there was a series of alternatives that were presented, which we didn't find any of those acceptable either. And many years were spent proposing alternative responses, which in some ways was unheard of. One of our responses, was accepted. And you will not find a more acronym layered undertaking than things you're doing with EPA. But what we were heading for was a ROD, which we were talking about all the time, record of decision and the final ROD on this deal. And it's just been dragged on and on and on. I can't even remember over the course of time how many community meetings we've had. I mean, people have spent their EPA careers working on this, I would suggest, probably among other things. But what else is unique here in our plan? Unlike many other sites in Kalamazoo, the city of Kalamazoo is going to control this going forward. That's unusual and give us the opportunity maybe for some redevelopment, Commissioner Juarez, maybe some passive recreational use there. But that is a huge, huge benefit. Will this material be gone? No, it won't. It's going to be what's on site will be consolidated on site and capped, and then there'll be monitoring equipment there and some funding to help us pay for it. So considering all that, I mean, this is a victory to me. It could have easily gone a bunch of other ways. So that is a victory that really accrues to many people who are around and some not around anymore, who were part of organizations, not just on the commission, but who have supported this change. And we can think of a lot of those names here of people who've spent a lot of time working on that. So credit goes to that, to the community. And then the work begins, and we got to have city staff that know what they're doing and participate in that. Still, this work, was not being directed by the city of Kalamazoo. This is work that is happening in the city of Kalamazoo, and luckily we're involved enough that we know exactly what's going on. So I really, really appreciate the update on that. And at this point, I hope the adjacent neighborhoods are feeling like it has seemed, reasonably safe. I have not heard that people are feeling that way, but certainly that's something we're going to have an opportunity to have direct input in real time on if it does feel like dust is blowing around or anything along those lines. So anyway, I just appreciate talking about it again, and in some shorter time in the future here, another couple years or so, maybe having this petite piece of the work wrapped up. So thank you to you. Thanks to everyone in the city of Kalamazoo who really worked on this effort to get us where we are on this. So thanks again. Appreciate it. DCM Lamb.
Nothing further from staff, thank you.
Okay. This is time for commissioner comments. Any comments from commissioners this evening? All right, just want to remind everybody that our business meeting for May 16th starts at 7 in these very chambers. And got a little break here, but we're looking forward for participation from anyone who'd like to join us here in the chambers, or there's also the opportunity to call in for public comment again. So thank you so much for spending some time with us. At this point, we're adjourned, and we'll see you after a bit.